So Dipanjan, to just give a small introduction, you can of course connect with him again in LinkedIn. He is the Vice President at Wells Fargo. So over to you, Dipanjan. Yes.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I remember, I think about 4 years ago or so, you and I were discussing about this program and what are the course content should look like. And now I think we have come a long way, right? So this is quite exciting for REVA University and seeing this program grow this big. A little about myself. Shinu touched upon it a little bit. I'm with the bank for about 5 years now. I started off in a team called AI Model Development Center of Excellence, where all the model development takes place. But then recently moved into a team called See More, Corporate Model Risk, right? So as the name suggests, it is see more. You should see more because you're in a heavily regulated industry. All the models that are developed in different lines of businesses, and even in my previous team, needs to be validated to ensure these models are correct, right? On a personal journey, I have about 20 years odd experience, 15 years in this space of analytics. Been privileged to build about 4 data science team right from scratch, and the team that I'm building right now, it is again a new build up for Wells Fargo. This is the second data science kind of team that I'm building. But when I started off, I was not in the analytics space at all. Like I guess most of you, you all are trying to transition into this analytics. So did I, right? When I started off, I had no idea what this analytics is going to be or what it is. So I started off. I wanted to become an advertising professional. So for about 5 years, I was in the advertising space. But because my background is statistics, and at that point in time, analytics was picking up. The analytics that we know now was quite different at that point in time. And I think Ratnakar and others who started long time ago, they would know that if you had a SAS certification, you're pretty much in the analytics space, right? So that goes a long way. I also like to work with IoT devices. I wish I could show you some of them, but maybe sometime later. So like Raspberry Pi, Arduino, and all those things. But I don't have time anymore, right? So it's still a hobby kind of thing. Just a quick disclosure before I proceed. All these views are mine. These are not Wells Fargo's view. So I had to take a permission to to go through this presentation. So that's the disclosure that I had to make, right? Okay. So you decided to be in the analytics space like I did. So congratulations on that. And for me personally, it was quite rewarding. And I wish that this is as rewarding as mine for you as well. So hang in there, right? So there are a lot of things that are coming up. Now, when we think about data scientists, right, you might have seen this chart that data science resides at the intersection of domain expertise, math statistics, and computational skills, right? That means that a typical data scientist that we always look for should have all the skills. This is unicorn, as I say, right? And it is not really found. So the reality is something like this. In my past four build out that I have done for building up data science team, these are the personas that we see, right? Not everybody comes with all those skills that we need for to be a data scientist. Somebody has a good understanding of the business. Somebody has better understanding of math statistics. So we look at a complementary skill when we kind of build out a team, right? So don't try to be an expert in all these areas. Try to build to your strength, right? By the way, if you don't have anything of this, if you have very small skills for any of them, then you're probably not a data scientist. And I cannot think of anyone, maybe maybe a poet, right? Poet might not be able to be be in data science, be in data science space, right? I guess all of you has one or two skills in some proportion. Um, so what I would suggest is you should capitalize on your strength, right? So don't try to focus on too many areas because it is so huge that it is not practically possible. It is not even expected these days. Okay, so what do we do? What do data scientists do? In real life. I want this to be a little interactive. Okay, so anybody can pick up a theme and tell me what you guys think an analyst do. Anybody? Anybody?
Analyzing the data, the trends, and solving the business problems.
Mhm. Yeah, you're very close. Anyone else wants to give it a shot? What do you think a data scientist do?
Analyze the data, segregate it based on the business need.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in my mind, this is obviously a generalization. This is the range of analytics that we see, right? Um, so the way I kind of categorize it is something which has happened in the past, right? Are all kind of business intelligence, right? And which are present and future looking. These are I would say data science type of data sciences type of work, right? So you might have seen some reports, to see what has happened in the past, and somebody might want to just drill down further and base these certain things. You want to create some alerts, and this falls under kind of a business intelligence paradigm, right? But when it comes to forecasting, predicting something, and you take those prediction and you want to find out, what is your best case scenario, those gets into, the analytics and data science space, right? It is not fair to say that business intelligence like this graph kind of, means that, the business value is relatively lower in business intelligence versus the analytics is not correct. But I hope you get it, right? But in the end, what happens is business always have questions, right? Business always, as somebody mentioned, I think, was it Pawan? He mentioned that business has a question and that needs to be answered. So whatever we do, being a data scientist, or a data scientist or analyst, we should always focus on solving those problems, right? If you can solve the problem, you're in business, right? Many a times I see, well, not many a times, sometimes I see that the data scientists, they delve too much into, the algorithm details and all those things, right? Which is good. You have to build all those things, but don't, I don't encourage too much of getting into too much into R&D when you're in the business side of it, right? Academics can appreciate all those things, but when it comes to business, right, you should solve business problem because business will always have a problem, and if you're able to solve the problem, you're going to be relevant, right? That's one thing that I realized, right? Now, let's start with the end in mind. After the course, I hope everybody would like to get into or switch over to some data science or analytics job, right? I hope that is correct. That assumption is correct. So how do you start with that end in mind, right? When you start with this course, I guess you should, and everybody should think of that outcome that, I want to get into, I want to grab a job which is in the data science space. Now, how do you position yourself in that? Now, let me show you some of the jobs. Actually, yesterday night I was just looking at some of the jobs that we have in Naukri. So, you should look at what are the jobs that are available, right? Let's say I could find one job which is in Wells Fargo right now, and you see this is a posting, right? So if you're in the banking industry, it makes all the more sense to focus in a job which is in the industry and always look for all these job boards and find out where the openings are and what are the requirements, right? So if you look at this one carefully, it says, and this is a little more details in our own job posting. So you see, um, it talks about which business line, and then what are the requirements that they have, right? And you see here, they talked about SAS or Python and SQL, uh, Teradata, Tableau. Look at this. Good to have a certification in data science or BI reporting, right? So, so this is how you should think about that. Hey, what are the jobs that are available? What are they? What do they require? And how do I leverage these skills, right? You're still big in SaaS in Wells Fargo, but we're trying to move into all the open source side. So so this is how you should position yourself. Let's look at one more job. If you're wondering what is IMOT, this means in my own team. This is a job posting that I have created. This is in my team. This is what I'm recruiting. This is the corporate model risk. And you see there are big data, GPU computing, NLP, SAS, Spark, SQL R, and this is what we need, right? So if you are already in this industry, you should always keep an eye on the job board, right? Maybe look at few more, perhaps healthcare. You see, they require senior statistician, modeling, and simulation, right? So if you already have a statistics background and you picked up this course, they require, well, SAS is coming big, I guess, everywhere. Rs, data, you see all those things that are there, right? Maybe a little few. Yeah, so if you're in the data engineering side, here is another one. This is with Baker Hughes is an oil and gas company. So if you're in that space, right, energy sector, this is what they need, right? So you see SQL, Pig, Python, Perl, AWS, understanding of AWS, and things like that, right? So I guess you should, look at your industry and, leverage Naukri or any other job postings that are out there, and find out where you can, find a good job there. In fact, there's one job that I came across in this BPO call center space, right? See, this is with Concentrix, right? And they require text analytics resources, and so they are looking for all those NLP stuff, some kind of deep learning as well. Well, they've talked a lot, right? And there's too many things, right? Keras, Python, PyTorch, TensorFlow. I guess you'll be learning all those things as you go, but just have an appreciation of what is required in your own fields, and that way you can kind of prioritize and put a lot of effort in those areas. Okay, so that's the point. Okay, now.
Yeah, that's a question. So all the job postings you have showed, thanks for showing that. I had just a doubt that if you see all the job postings, they are asking for like maybe 2 years of experience or 3 years of experience in SQL or Python and all those things. So for a person who's looking to transition into the analytics side, how do you think what approach we should have towards these job postings?
Yes, very good question, and I'll exactly cover that. So yeah, I mean, how do you start, right? And this is one of the things that I constantly face at Wells Fargo as well, right? Somebody who is in, say, operations and comes to me and says, "Hey, you have a job posting. How do I apply?" Right? It's quite difficult unless because you have you're already in the system, right? You have spent some time, and if you are taking up a relatively senior role, then the expectation goes high, right? So how do you position yourself, right? So let's take a step back, and as you go, right, how do you find a mentor, right? The mentor could be anyone in the industry, right? It could be me, and there are so many others who are actually representing the whole corporate work. So what you should do is find mentors, right? And the best place I would say to find mentors is kind of LinkedIn, right? But what I see usually is people send me this kind of so yeah, I mean I get this kind of responses in LinkedIn, right? I said, okay, here's a job posting, can you refer? Or it's very generic. It looks like a mass mailer, right? So don't do this kind of mailers, right? So what you should do is, you just connect and ask very specific question, or find a time. Say, hey, I want to talk to you. I want a mentor, right? I have few questions that I need your help with. I'm not trying to ask for a job to start with, because that's not going to happen when you start, right? So what you should do, I guess, try and convince someone and find a mentor first, and then try and set up some one-on-one time on the phone rather than just chatting on the LinkedIn, right? And ask these kind of questions, right? Um, Tell me your story. How did you start with data science, right? And tell me how data science is adding values to your organization, right? And maybe when you target a particular company, they might be using, like Shinu was mentioning, that banking is a regulated industry. There are a lot of people use SaaS. So if you are from that industry, try and get a profile that, hey, are they using too much of SaaS? Are they more in Python, or are they using big data? If you are transitioning from say IT side of it, right? Then best way to position yourself would be to not as data scientist, but a data engineer, right? Because you already have a little bit of understanding of how software development works, how the databases work, and things like that, right? So do they need more of Spark? Do they need something else? It is more of a data kind of ETL kind of work, or when you build a data science solution, is it the consumption layer? Is it the UI that has to be built? So I guess the first breakthrough is going to be very important, right? You have to be very focused. Now, if you are trying to transition into something completely different, which is unrelated, chances are you will struggle, right? So that's why I say in the beginning that you should capitalize on your strength, right? What you're capable of right now, right? So build on that. So these are some of the questions that you can ask, right? Educational background is not very relevant if you are already working and you're trying to transition in the same industry. It doesn't matter. Yeah, these are some of the pertinent questions. That do you hire anyone without any prior data science experience, right? But if you want to, then what are the skills or characteristics that you look for, right? So these are some of the questions, and I cannot give you a silver bullet. Your mentor, who is from that industry, would be able to tell you, or at least guide you in that direction. Make sense? Once you have understood, the lay of the land, how you should build your, tools, and how do you build your capabilities in this space, I guess then you should start focusing on portfolio, right? Building your own portfolio, like what Shinu was mentioning. Exactly. There are plenty other things to connect with your mentors, but then when you start building your portfolio, these are some of the areas that you can focus on. GitHub is a fantastic place. Whatever code base that you develop, kind of the productize it in your mind, and then put it in GitHub, right? Kaggle is a great place for competitions. But Kaggle focuses too much into building very high performing data science solutions, which are not necessarily the case in real world. We don't, at least in banking industry, I can tell you. Here we focus, our focus goes too much into the robustness of the model, the explainability of the model, then the performance of the model. Performance is important, right? But data is always changing, right? How if you build a model which is really performing well, right, in the present data, and if it doesn't when it sees a new data, right, as the time traverses, then those are not good models, right? So Kaggle competition would give you a lot of depth in algorithms, right? The latest and greatest algorithms, all those things you'll be able to see. Colab is a place where, well, you don't need to struggle with installing a lot of softwares in your own systems. You can just go to Colab and I guess they provide free. It is from Google, so you can run your own notebook and it's a great platform. For those of you, I guess, interested in the BI side, so Tableau Public you should leverage, right? So if you have built a really good dashboard, put it in Tableau Public, and you can link it with your resume or anywhere that you want to showcase. So this is a great place. So you should leverage Tableau Public. You can start your own blog, right? Your own YouTube channel, right? So these are some of the areas that can help you. There's some of the free tools that are available at your disposal to build your portfolio, right? When you go and talk to during your interview, you can just showcase all those things, right? You can talk to them. If you shoot a video, put a link that, hey, this is how I have done it, and this adds a lot of value, right? You need to differentiate yourself, right? Think about it, right? You have some experience in this field, and you're not a fresher. So when you go and project yourself, obviously you're not targeting for an early entry-level job in data science. So that means you need to compete with whoever is in this field for a relatively longer period of time, who has a working experience, right? So the expectation is that if I hired this person comes ready-made. I don't need to teach a lot of things. So these are the areas. If you can focus, if you can put all your portfolio, you basically differentiate yourself, right? There are plenty other tools, but I thought I'd just mention these. Okay. Now, look within first before you look out. Kind of a philosophy, right? So before you actually look out for a job outside, it is better to look within the company, right? Because you have access to the data, you know people, right? You can team up with some because you bring some skills or knowledge that that can complement with other groups and try and build a solution, right? And then present it to the higher management, right? And when you make all those presentations, make yourself available, display your skills, you definitely get highlighted, right? I can tell you in Wells Fargo, we have hired from within the group who doesn't necessarily had a lot of data science experience, but we still hired because we found that they have done their homework, right? So when you build some knowledge, some understanding within the company, and you know that, hey, I can expand from here, that's when I think you should look out. Don't be generic, right? In this space, there are too many data scientists out there, right? But I guess if you are focused, if you know your target companies, if you know your strengths, if you know your skills, with all these things, I think you should be able to position yourself relatively well than your competitors. Okay. After all these things, write a great resume and wait for it. In the end, this is a SQL code for those of you who understand SQL. This is the summary, right? You should leverage on your existing experience, and you should always focus on solving business problems.
So how about, like, I think the senior professionals, right? Like say my example, if I take mine, like I have around 15 years actually, more from telecom and NMS, EMS background. So Like in the sense data science, in the sense I use Python in my projects and stuff. So I'm technically in technical coding and all. So in this case, like would it be a challenge, right, to position into data science, like or it's better to look somewhere in the telecom itself. That would be a better choice than altogether going into the retail or something as such, right, or
I
banking
think
or something.
so. I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
It is always better to leverage your
Mhm.
present strength, right? You have spent 15 years, like you said, right?
Mhm.
And you know this industry in and out.
Mhm.
And in the telecom space, let's see, I actually could find certain jobs already in the telecom space, I guess. What I'm trying to tell you is,
Yeah.
rather than getting into, making a generic profile and targeting, say, I want
Mm.
to lead a data science team for
Mhm.
any industry, to
Mhm.
start with might be a little challenging, right?
Mhm.
Because if you're targeting, say, a leadership position,
Mhm.
and say setting up a data science practice or taking over from an existing team, they would always question you, hey, do you have experience in this field, right?
Mhm.
What have you done in this field? But if you just target in your own industries, right?
Mhm.
And if you're from the technical side,
Mhm.
say in telecom industry, um, say the administrative side of it, right? The big data administrative side of it, right? It's more technical.
Mhm.
Data engineering piece, right? How do you productionalize it?
Mhm.
See, data science, at least I can tell you in Wells Fargo,
Mhm.
it's basically sits on a three-legged stool. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
One group is responsible for qualifying projects, right?
Mhm.
So they are more of a governing body.
Mhm.
So any business line makes a proposal.
Mhm.
So this group would say that, hey, it makes sense for Wells Fargo to invest, and we see that if we solve this problem, we'll make whatever $1 million of revenue or cost savings, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
once that is qualified, it
Mhm.
comes to the actual developer, which was my previous team, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And this is where the data scientist would code, right?
Mhm.
Work with the business, get the data, build the algorithm, do the testing, and everything, right?
Mhm.
Now, once that is done, and when actually they're doing it, they work very closely with this technology group,
Mhm.
right? So technology manages all the platforms,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So in Wells Fargo, we have a massive Spark cluster, right?
Mhm.
Apache
Mhm.
Spark. Spark. This
Mhm.
is where we
Mhm.
actually build all these algorithms.
Mhm.
So the people who manages the Spark clusters are all not necessarily data scientists, if you know what I
Mhm.
mean, right? So they
Yeah,
are
yeah.
they are more on the big data administrative side, right?
Mhm.
But when
Mhm.
they see our code, right?
Mhm.
When they see, hey, this is the data scientist that they have done, and I need
Mhm.
to productionalize it, they get those understanding as they go, right?
Okay. Okay.
Now here, this is what I talked about, right? People are
Mhm.
looking for this. This doesn't
Mhm.
exist.
Yeah.
And this is what it is, right? Some people
Yeah.
have some areas, some people, and it's all complementary.
Yeah.
But over a period of time, when you're
Mhm.
part of this whole ecosystem, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
The three-legged stool that I talked
Yeah.
about,
Yeah. 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 Mhm.
your circle starts to become equal, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you expand that
Mhm.
way. So rather than positioning at the outset that, hey, I know, in and out of, say, deep learning, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I know in and out of, say, NLP algorithms, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Rather than doing that,
Mhm.
especially for an experienced person like
Mhm.
yourself, right?
Mhm.
It is always better to focus where your expertise lies and build from there. Make sense?
Yeah. 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 Thanks a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. Great question.
I'm from IT industry with like around 13 years experience of development background.
Mhm.
So means how do you suggest like for a mid-year like mid-career transition for someone like me who is like transitioning from a development and a management profession to a like analyst
Hmm.
profession?
Very similar to what I was suggesting, right? That since you're in the IT side, did you mention IT? You manage IT?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So there are, like I said, right? So data science solutions are not exclusively built by the data scientists themselves, right? Like I said, like I was mentioning, right? Those three-legged stool, right? So data scientist does a very specific piece of it in this whole puzzle. IT plays a very important role. Not just running those algorithms, but what happens after the algorithm is selected, right? Once the algorithm is built. So you take a lot of time to build the algorithm. That's where you require, the big data infrastructure, parallel computing, and things like that. But in the end, your solution has to embed with some existing or new way of delivering it, right, to the end customer. Usually, the way we deliver solutions are through some web applications or some web application basically calls some services from from say Python code, right? So to build that, you always require a data engineering team, right? And it is a close collaborations with the IT folks. So I would say, why don't you focus there, right? You have seen this ecosystem. Excuse me. Why don't you start from there? Try to get a position which works in concert or in collaboration with the data science team. So what will happen is you will have an understanding of the solution, right? And you can always trace backward to find out why this solution is in place, right? Why was it important? So you paint the picture of the business problem, and then slowly and gradually, you'll be able to appreciate how the data science solution has come about, and you can, and if you're interested, from there on, you can get into the algorithm building side of it. But then again, this is a very important task for any industry, how to productionalize it. Not everybody has solved the problem though, but this is a very important aspect. So you can play to your strength there.
Okay, thank you.
Makes sense, Ravi?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you guys, and all the best.